The message did not arrive with drama. No blaring alarms. No celestial thunder. It simply overwrote reality. Every screen on Earth, phones, traffic displays, military command walls, hospital monitors, ancient CRTs still humming in forgotten basements, went black for half a second. Then the stars appeared. Cold. Distant. Smothered by steel. A ring of alien warships encircled Earth like a noose. 12,000 of them. The camera pulled forward, passing hulls the size of cities, bristling with weapons that bent light around them. At the center of the image stood a towering, mantis-like figure clad in ceremonial armor etched with kill glyphs. Its voice was translated instantly, flawlessly, mercilessly. "This is High Marshal K'Arthak of the Virexian Dominion. Your world is surrounded by 12,000 warships. You have been evaluated. You have been found wanting. Surrender immediately." A pause, long enough to let the weight settle. "Non-compliance will result in orbital cleansing, followed by planetary sterilization. You have 5 minutes." Across Earth, time froze. Air traffic halted mid-sky. Stock markets collapsed in seconds. Churches filled. Mosques echoed with prayer. Old veterans stared upward, eyes hollow, recognizing the tone instantly. That wasn't a threat. That was a procedure. In Geneva, the emergency council chamber filled with shouting leaders, flickering holograms, and the unmistakable scent of fear. "We don't even have a unified space fleet," someone yelled. "Our orbital defenses are symbolic at best. Open negotiations, now!" At the far end of the chamber, a single man sat quietly. General Marcus Hale. 72 years old. Retired twice. Dragged back because when humanity panicked, it still reached for its oldest scars. He watched the alien fleet projection without blinking. 12,000, he murmured. President Alonso Reyes turned to him, voice cracking. "General, we can't fight this." Hale nodded. "Correct." Relief flickered briefly around the room. Then Hale added, "But neither can they." That killed the relief dead. Admiral Yelena Morozov leaned closer. "Explain." Slowly. Hale stood, joints creaking, and pointed to the glowing ring of warships. "They didn't come to negotiate. They didn't blockade trade routes. They didn't test our defenses." He tapped the image. "They jumped straight to extermination protocol." A diplomat scoffed. So, Hale said calmly. "This isn't conquest. It's pest control." Silence fell. "They think we're loud," Hale continued. "Chaotic. Divided. A species that argues with itself so much it couldn't possibly act in unison." He looked around the room, eyes sharp. "And historically? They'd be right." A red timer ticked down on every screen, 03:41. 03:40. "But," Hale said, "they made one mistake." Reyes swallowed. "Which is?" "They assumed we stopped being human when we reached the stars." Above Earth, High Marshal K'Arthak observed the planet with mild irritation. No weapons fire. No coordinated response. Just noise, chaotic transmissions, desperate signals, overlapping chatter. As expected. "Species designation human," K'Arthak said aloud. "Psychological profile, fractious, sentimental, prone to internal conflict." An aide clicked its mandibles nervously. "Marshal, long-range scans indicate unusual gravitational anomalies in near-Earth orbit." K'Arthak dismissed it. "Primitive debris. Their kind litters space with garbage." Back on Earth, the timer hit 112. General Hale activated a secure channel so old it didn't even have a name anymore. "Phase 0, he said. Around the solar system, things that had slept for decades quietly woke up. Not ships. Infrastructure. Old mining arrays on the dark side of the moon shifted alignment. Deep space research platforms, officially abandoned, powered internal systems. Thousands of civilian satellites adjusted orbit by fractions of a degree no one had noticed, except the people who designed them. Morozov whispered. They never saw this coming. No, Hale said. Because we never showed it. The Galactic Council, light years away, watched the confrontation with detached curiosity. Another young species about to be erased. Unfortunate, but statistically inevitable. One observer frowned. Why hasn't Earth surrendered? Another replied. Denial. It's common. Back above Earth, Kaarathak's patience thinned. 30 seconds, he announced. Prepare cleansing volley. Weapon systems across the Dominion fleet began charging. Space itself seemed to hum. Then Earth responded. The transmission that appeared on every channel showed no flags, no dramatic backdrop. Just a human man in a plain, worn uniform, standing in what looked like an old command bunker. His face was lined. His eyes were tired. But there was no fear in them. This is General Marcus Hale of Earth, he said evenly. Your message is received. Kaarathak leaned forward, mandibles flaring. You have chosen extinction. Hale shook his head slowly. No, he said. You have. The timer hit midnight. The transmission cut. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then one of the Virexian warships, an outer picket vessel the size of Manhattan, simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. No warning. Just gone. Alarms screamed across the Dominion fleet. Marshal! An officer shrieked. Ship KX-441 is missing! Another vanished. Then another. Sensors went wild as localized space folded inward and snapped back like a predator's jaw. Kaarathak roared, disbelief cracking his voice. What weapon is this? A scientist screamed. Artificial space-time collapse. Human origin. They've weaponized. Deletion. Back on Earth, General Hale watched the feed with grim calm. No, he said softly. They're paying attention. High above, 12,000 warships suddenly realized they weren't surrounding Earth. They were inside a trap. Panic spread through the Virexian fleet faster than any weapon. Not fear, Virexians were bred beyond that, but disbelief, which was far worse. Warships vanished without explosions, without energy signatures, without even debris to analyze. One moment they existed. The next, space-time folded neatly where they had been, like a page torn from a book that no longer remembered the story. Report! High Marshal Kaarathak thundered. A command officer's voice fractured. We are losing ships in a widening spiral, Marshal. No incoming fire detected. No weapons discharge. Another screamed. Gravitational shear detected. Localized, artificial. It's targeting hull mass specifically. Kaarathak slammed a claw into the console, cracking crystalline alloy. Deploy countermeasures. Jam everything. They're not using signals, the scientist cried. There's nothing to jam. Above Earth, energy lances finally fired. Brilliant spears of annihilation tore toward the planet in a blinding wave meant to break morale and atmosphere alike. They never arrived. Earth shimmered. For half a second, the planet looked wrong. Translucent. As if reality itself had blinked. The Virexian beams bent, twisted, and dispersed into harmless light. In the deepest command bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, a technician whispered. Planetary shield holding at 97%. Admiral Yelena Morozov exhaled through clenched teeth. Still operational. President Reyes stared at the display. That shield was supposed to be theoretical. General Hale didn't look away from the feed. Most things are, he said. Until you need them. The Virexians reeled. Kaarathak's mandibles trembled, not fear, but fury. They should not possess this technology. They were classified as a Tier 7 civilization. That classification, a scientist muttered, assumed honesty. On Earth, Hale raised a hand. Phase 1. Across human-controlled space, something ancient and patient stirred. The Galactic Council's long-range sensors began lighting up with anomalies, not around Earth, but everywhere else. Trade lanes flickered. Deep space relays went dark. A mining station on the fringe of Virexian territory detonated without warning. "What's happening?" a council delegate demanded. An analyst whispered. "Human vessels, civilian registered, they're activating weapon systems." The council erupted. "Civilians can't do that. Those are merchants. Those are refugees." The analyst's voice dropped. They were. For decades, humanity had spread outward quietly. Not with armadas or banners, but with freighters, prospectors, wandering families, and debt-ridden traders. They'd smiled. Bartered. Complained about tariffs. And beneath the cargo? Frames. Reactors. Folded weapons packed so tightly they looked like structural supports. A Virexian shipyard vanished in a white silence. Then another. Supply depots collapsed inward. Communication hubs stopped responding. The Dominion wasn't fighting Earth anymore. It was bleeding everywhere humans had ever shaken hands. Kaarathak stared at cascading reports. "This is impossible. How long have they been planning this?" A human voice cut into the Dominion command channel, unauthorized, crystal clear. "Since first contact," the woman said. Kaarathak spun. "Identify yourself." "Commander Sarah Chin, Terran Merchant Fleet." Kaarathak sneered. "You admit to being a civilian combatant?" Chin laughed softly. "Marshal, we invented the term armed neutral. You just made it relevant again." Behind her, the view shifted, showing a convoy of freighters shedding outer hulls as gunports unfolded like steel petals. "You surrounded Earth," Chen continued calmly. "Congratulations." She leaned closer to the camera. "You just activated our insurance policy." Back on Earth, General Hale watched casualty estimates climb on the Dominion side. Morozov grimaced. "This is escalating fast." Hale nodded. "It was always going to." In orbit, Virexian formations began breaking. Ships attempted to scatter, to jump away, but spacetime twisted cruelly around them. Escape vectors collapsed. FTL drives misfired into nothing. "They can't leave," a technician said. "The deletion lattice is still active." Kaarathak roared in rage. "Focus fire on Earth! Break their morale!" The Dominion fleet unleashed everything. Missiles. Plasma storms. Exotic weapons banned by 3 galactic accords. Earth held. The shield flared, dimmed, stabilized. On the surface, cities watched the sky burn and did not run. Old men stood beside grandchildren and whispered, "We've seen worse." The Galactic Council fell silent. One ancient delegate finally spoke. "The humans are not fighting a war." Another answered grimly, "They're ending one." Back in the bunker, Hale allowed himself one breath. "Good," he murmured. "They're angry now." Reyes stared at him. "That's good?" Hale's eyes were hard. "No," he said. "It's human." High above Earth, High Marshal Kaarathak finally understood the truth. 12,000 warships weren't enough. Because humanity wasn't defending a planet. They were defending a grudge. The request for parley came through a shattered channel. It was not formal. It was not dignified. It was desperate. High Marshal Kaarathak no longer filled the frame with triumph and ceremony. His armor was cracked. One mandible hung at a wrong angle, scorched black along the edge. Behind him, the once pristine command deck flickered under emergency lighting, half its stations dark. "This is High Marshal Kaarathak," he said, voice strained. "I invoke the ancient right of ceasefire and negotiation." On Earth, the command bunker went silent. President Reyes looked at General Hale. "We don't have to answer." Hale nodded. "No. We don't." A pause. "But if we don't," Hale added, "we become the thing they thought we were." Morozov frowned. "And if we do?" Hale's eyes hardened. "Then we make sure they never make this mistake again." The channel opened. The Galactic Council flooded in instantly, their observers desperate to insert themselves before the war collapsed into something unrecognizable. Kaarathak's voice sharpened with bitterness. "You deceived the galaxy. You posed as traitors, civilians, harmless migrants. Hale didn't bother to deny it. You evaluated us as prey, Hale said evenly. We adapted. You hid weapons among non-combatants, Kaarathak roared. Hale leaned forward. So did you. We read your archives after you conquered the Jasari and called it integration. The High Marshal froze. The council stirred uneasily. You accessed Dominion archives? A delegate whispered. Hale nodded. You left them online. Sloppy. Kaarathak's mandibles clicked in fury. We offered you a place in the Dominion. Protection. Order. And tribute, Hale replied. And conscription. And obedience. Kaarathak hissed. That is the price of peace. Hale's voice dropped. No. That's the price of silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside, Virexian ships continued to vanish, not in mass waves now, but selectively. Precision strikes. Surgical. Terrifying. Finally, Kaarathak asked the question every defeated conqueror eventually asked. What do you want? President Reyes stiffened. Hale raised a hand and spoke before politics could soften the answer. You will withdraw every remaining ship from Earth's orbit. Kaarathak nodded stiffly. You will dismantle your forward fleets within 50 light-years of human space. A ripple of shock passed through the council. And, Hale continued, you will open your military archives to the Galactic Council. All of them. Kaarathak recoiled. That would cripple us. Hale met his gaze without blinking. Good. The High Marshal's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. And if we refuse? Hale gestured off-screen. A technician brought up a feed, grainy, distant, unmistakable. A star. Or rather, what was happening to one? Space around it warped, compressed, folded in on itself like wet paper. The star's light dimmed, stretched red, then paused. This is a test site, Hale said calmly. Uninhabited system. No sentient life. The council erupted. You can't. Stellar-scale weapons are forbidden. This destabilizes the entire. Hale raised his voice just enough. We already tested it. The feed ended before the star finished collapsing. Kaarathak sagged. For the first time in his long, blood-soaked career, the High Marshal of the Virexian Dominion understood what true asymmetry looked like. Not superior firepower. Superior willingness. I accept your terms, Kaarathak said hoarsely. The order rippled outward. Virexian ships powered down weapons. One by one, they turned away from Earth and jumped out system, leaving behind wreckage, silence, and a galaxy holding its breath. On Earth, there were no cheers. Just exhausted breathing. Reyes rubbed his face. We won. Hale shook his head slowly. No. He stared at the star-filled screen. We survived. Later, as cleanup operations began and casualty lists finalized, a young intelligence officer approached Hale hesitantly. Sir, she said, permission to ask a personal question. Hale nodded. Are we the villains now? Hale considered that. He thought of Earth's history, of empires that justified conquest as order, of flags planted on graves, of civilizations told their suffering was necessary. Finally, he answered. No, he said. But we're no longer innocent. The officer swallowed. Outside, the galaxy quietly recalibrated its understanding of humanity. Earth had not asked for dominion. It had demanded distance. And every species listening understood the unspoken warning. Cross us, and we will not conquer you. We will erase the idea that you ever tried. Years passed, and the galaxy whispered the story in fragments, half rumor, half terror, all respect. They said humans were monsters. They said humans were geniuses. They said humans were insane. All were true. Earth never joined another empire. Humanity did not conquer planets. It did not claim resources beyond what it needed. But it became a line no one dared cross. Trade resumed with caution. Borders stabilized. Wars slowed. Entire systems quietly avoided Earth's vicinity. The Galactic Council implemented new protocols, retroactively banning planetary-scale deletion weapons. But everyone knew humans would still have them. And more importantly, they knew humans would use them if provoked. On a quiet station at the edge of known space, overlooking the black vastness between stars, a retired General Marcus Hale sipped bitter coffee. The bartender, a four-limbed alien with luminous eyes, slid the cup across the counter without words. Silence was their shared language. "You know," the bartender said at last, his voice low and thoughtful. "They still talk about that day. 12,000 ships. Gone." Hale smiled faintly, staring at the endless void. "They should. Do you regret it?" the alien asked, studying the human carefully. Hale leaned back. His eyes traced a faint glimmer of distant stars. He thought of children playing in parks on Earth, of families walking under open skies, of an old planet that had survived one more attempt at erasure. "No," he said. "I regret only that it was necessary." Outside, stars burned quietly, indifferent to the petty conflicts of mortal beings. Hale finished his coffee, setting the empty cup down with deliberate calm. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. It hadn't ruled. It hadn't even claimed vengeance. They had survived. And in surviving, they had done what no alien species could: they had made the galaxy remember them. Every alien commander who thought to threaten Earth again would pause. Every council member who underestimated humans would think twice. Humans didn't need to dominate. They didn't need empires. They only needed to remind the universe that some species refused to be extinguished. And sometimes that was more terrifying than any warship, any weapon, any strategy. The stars stretched infinitely, but Earth was no longer a small dot to be dismissed. It was a warning. And General Hale, for the first time in decades, allowed himself a small, satisfied grin. Humanity, indeed, had survived itself, and the galaxy would never forget.